Welcome back to Scripps News. Dozens of Google users in California have filed lawsuits against the tech giant. They're asking for monetary damages over the company's secret tracking of web activity. Earlier this week, Google settled a years-long legal battle about privacy issues with the Chrome browser. The settlement did not include any monetary damages, thus the California lawsuits now streaming in. But the company did agree to destroy the private web browsing data of millions of people who were using incognito mode to surf the web, thinking they're totally anonymous. The class action suit accused Google of misleading users into believing their data was not being tracked while they were incognito. And it resulted in a massive haul of information. As the 2020 lawsuit put it, quote, Google has made itself an unaccountable trove of information so detailed and expansive that George Orwell never would have dreamed it. Okay, so in short, they know everything apparently. Will the settlement actually change anything when it comes to keeping our private data private? Joining me now is Carl Szabo. He's the Vice President and General Counsel for NetChoice, an industry group that represents social media groups and industry internet platforms, including Google. Also a professor of internet law at George Mason University. So, Carl, right off the top, just got to ask here because of your connection to Google, are you speaking for yourself, any social media groups? Who are you speaking for?
No, the wonderful thing is at NetChoice, we represent NetChoice. We represent the fundamental principles of free expression, free enterprise. I don't profess to represent a single one of our members, and oftentimes our views may differ substantially from those of our members, who, as you rightfully identify, do include some of the big guys, but they also include some of the smaller players, such as like Etsy's and Pinterest of the world.
Okay. I'll take that as you're speaking for yourself. Carl, will the incognito
myself
users...
or my company NetChoice, yeah.
Okay, all right. So people just keep that in mind. So incognito users who are bringing lawsuits, are they going to get any money, do you think?
So one of the fundamental questions, whenever you bring a lawsuit for damages, you have to identify what is the value of those damages. So what is being argued is that when we use incognito mode, that data was being collected and we expected it shouldn't have been. And that's a deception, misrepresentation type case. But ultimately, what are the damages actually sustained to the individuals? Well, I was duped. Okay, so put a value on that. And that's where it gets a little tricky, because you can't really put a value on something that is incognizable and is ephemeral and doesn't really exist. If I were to have my windows broken, I could put a value on that. Clear damages, $100 for a new window pane. Easy peasy. But the Supreme Court has said in cases like Spokio and many others that you actually need to have real damages, not theoretical damages or some sort of that's the first problem. But the important part of the settlement here is it actually addresses the fundamental complaint that was raised, and it seeks to address the complaint's misrepresentation. Go ahead. Sorry.
Carl, so if you're saying, okay, you haven't actually been damaged in any tangible way, that doesn't mean they can't put a dollar figure on it. I mean, you look at companies like Facebook. I think I've heard in the past. I listen to Kara Swisher all the time, and she's the tech reporter. And I think that Facebook has something like a few $100s value on each user. I'm sure Google, Alphabet, with all of its resources, could put a dollar figure on these people.
You know, maybe they can and maybe they can't, but that's the job of the plaintiffs to actually show what the value of the damages are. So here what you're seeing is a legitimate remedy to the problem. So all of the data has been purged. There are clear explainers of what incognito mode is and isn't. And it was never intended to be a do whatever you want and you have complete anonymity online. That's not what it was designed for.
You know, lawyers like you read that. Nobody else reads that. You know, if you want to name it incognito, you're doing that for a reason. Come on. You're a lawyer. You read that stuff. Nobody else reads that.
Well, but the thing is, even if people don't read contracts, you're still bound by them. I didn't read every single word when I bought my home, and that doesn't mean the bank doesn't still own my home and I don't still owe the bank money. That's a contract, and whether we read contracts or not, that's the way it breaks down. But that was the crux of the lawsuit. Is there was an argument of deception. There was an argument of fraud. And the good news is that you don't have to be a California resident to enjoy the benefits of the settlement, because all user data collected in incognito mode is being purged. So this isn't just about addressing the complaints of a couple of people in California. This is about addressing a mistake that Google says, or essentially didn't say because it was settlement, but acknowledges might have happened. They've remedied the problem,
Right.
and they have come to address it. So yes, it was inartfully described. It was arguably fraudulent or misrepresentative, and that was the complaint. But ultimately, we did get to the right place because now Google is purging all the data. Google is making sure
Right.
it is
Yeah.
clean from their systems. They have. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know that they're going to get a lot of thank you cards from users saying thank you for purging. That was a very good corporate citizenship here. But okay, so it's going to be gone. That's fine. But let me ask you, I guess what is the primary question? Why were they collecting this to begin with?
So the data they were collecting wasn't directly connected to individual users. That's kind of the misconception about what was argued and what incognito does. What they were looking at is kind of just macro. So the way incognito mode operates today, it's as though you installed a brand new version of Chrome and never signed into anything ever. And whenever you do that, data will be collected. It's going to be collecting IP addresses so that it can deliver you the content that you're asking for. It's going to deliver search queries so that it can get better results. But as soon as you close that incognito browser, all of that localized data is annihilated. So there's no way to connect me, you, or anyone else to the data that was collected. It's as though you just open a brand new browser.
Okay.
And what you see now is when you activate incognito mode, there's a huge interstitial that makes crystal clear that, hey, it says incognito, but data may or may not still be collected. And that is a result of things like this complaint and ultimately the settlement.
Yeah, okay. So it's a bit of a browser beware situation. In that case, if people are, one, cognizant of being incognito and want something that is a little more private, what is the best browser?
It really depends on what you seek, because the challenge with privacy, and I teach privacy at my law school. Yeah, privacy is in the eye of the beholder, though. I could go around and ask a dozen people, and they'd all have different definitions. Because at the end of the day, some of us may want more data collected, some of us may want less. If I'm doing
Can
a
I give you
search
a
for something on
definition?
the internet, yeah, please.
Okay, let me give you a definition. Not collecting cookies, not looking at my IP address and tracking everything I do, not ever trying to know where I'm going from one website to another, nothing collected. What's the best? I remember in the past people said, go to Mozilla. That's the best one. Like, what is the best one?
I mean, the best one would be something you just installed and then you immediately uninstall at the end of the day. Because let's use the cookie example. Cookies are necessary to make the internet work. It allows the browser to identify a change that you've made from one web page to another. In order, for example, if I put something into a shopping cart in an online store, without a cookie,
Right.
there's no way to actually carry that item from my shopping cart to the checkout page. And that's where cookies are essential. So cookies, once again, are neither good nor bad. The cross-site tracking that we're talking about, that's another factor. You can talk about the data collection that's being done by your internet service provider. That's your Comcast or your Verizons. That's another level. So one of the first things people could do, if that is one of your main concerns, is you can install what's called a VPN, which is a virtual private network. You can actually go onto your router and actually change the default IP address to something like 1.1.1.1, and that will provide you some additional anonymity from your ISP level. Finally, if your chief concern is being tracked across different sites, then what you can do is never log into anything. You can activate incognito mode or private search on Safari or something similar, and essentially make sure you close the window, close the app every time you're done browsing.
Okay. All right. Those are some good, real world tips here. Okay. Of course, Congress right now taking up this bipartisan bill, perhaps in the future, this American Privacy Rights Act that would limit the ability of some of these companies to do that. I see that smile, and I anticipate a future fight on that. Okay, but I also do want to mention Justice Department suing Google, saying they're a monopoly on search, on ad traffic, and what have you. So that gets me into the next item that we want to discuss in about 3 minutes here on Scripps News. And Carl Szabo, I think you're sticking around with us, I believe, and I hope you do, because This is a big one. It's Google, great at search. We know that, totally free. But with AI, it's about to get maybe better and maybe pricier. We're going to help you see around that corner. Carl's sticking around next.